Welcome back to Retirement with Rick. I'm your host, Rick Rodriguez, certified reverse mortgage professional. And today I have a fantastic guest, Dr. Richard Chang. Richard is a world-renowned business consultant, a best-selling author, and a public speaker. He's helped organizations like Disney, McDonald's, and Citibank achieve their strategic goals. But today we're talking about his personal journey, how he used a jumbo reverse mortgage to restructure his finances and enhance his retirement lifestyle. We'll dive into what led Richard to consider a reverse mortgage, his experience working with me, and what life looks like now after making this financial move. If you've ever wondered whether a reverse mortgage is just for those in financial distress, think again. Richard's story shows that this tool can be a smart move for savvy and affluent homeowners as well. Richard, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Rick.
Excellent. A lot of accolades there. And some of those I knew in the course of working with you, but others I just recently learned. An incredible career spanning over 40 years, working with major global brands. What's one piece of advice that you've given these other businesses that you use in your personal life today?
Wow, that's a big question to start with. But I'd say one thing about life is to think of your life as your own business. And as I advise businesses, that it's very important to have sort of a vision of what it is that your success looks like. And that vision of your business is very similar to creating what that vision of your successful life might look like. And so one of the things that we do in businesses as I consult is to make sure that they reinvest or relook at their future, say every 5, 10 years in terms of a strategy and a strategic vision. But also you got to put together what does it take to execute against that in order to achieve what you're looking to get and achieve in your business. So same thing in life. I always recommend to friends, myself, I write about this, that every 3 to 5 years or so, make sure that you take time to re-envision how your life is moving, where your life's going, how your career is moving. So there's more to life than just work. And so it's also important to figure out all the aspects of your life and where do you want to find successes as you go forward in life. And those successes could be financial. Those successes could be community involvement or community contribution. Those successes could be building a very successful and healthy family. They can be all sorts of different areas. And I call those your key result areas in life. So that's just like I do with businesses and their plans, is figure out what are the key results that you want to accomplish as a business and where do we want to find success.
That's excellent. That's a way to start right
Yeah.
there. Very appropriate, and how how you can take those same concepts in business, and a lot of people don't look at it that way, and apply it to your personal life and have a little bit more structure, more control,
Yeah.
right, over your personal journey.
Yeah, most definitely, because a lot of people have dreams.
Yeah.
Most people do in many ways, and some people's dreams are squashed.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's not just a dream. You've got to figure out how do you execute against it to achieve that dream. And so a lot of people in their personal lives, they work, they contribute to somewhere else, but they don't really spend that amount of time and diligence on their own future and their own career and their
So
own
true.
lifestyle and
Yeah.
everything else that goes with it. And so having a dream is great, but if you don't execute, you're never going to get there.
Yeah, well said. Speaking of writing books, you've authored 31 books, if my research is correct.
Yes.
Including the Passion Plan, which is out there and well read. If something for those out there, look it up. The Passion Plan. If you had to write a book about your own retirement journey, what would the title look like?
I'd say the title would be something like It's Never Too Late. And I say it's never too
Right.
late because I think a lot of people get into retirement and they feel like, okay, I've worked my life all the way through, whatever. I'm at retirement stage. So now it's just lounge around, do nothing, maybe just travel, do whatever. But travel could be great. But how much can you travel, in retirement? Are you going to
Yeah.
travel the rest of your life? Or are you going to tried to pursue and try to achieve some things in life that maybe you didn't have a chance to do while you were intensively working in a full-time job or something like that.
Right.
Some people oftentimes will have, in terms of getting married or having a family, a lot of their energy and time goes towards that, and then they sometimes miss out on things they may personally want to do. So retirement's a perfect time, I think, to take on some new endeavors, try out some new things. I've done that myself personally, and I'm doing some things now as part-time work as in retirement that I didn't have a chance to do before, but there were things that I really wanted to experience. So that's what I would say is like in retirement, I would say it's never too late. And sometimes you have to get your life back on track in different ways.
Yeah. That's wonderfully said, because a lot of people, and you probably come across this as well in retirement, you just said it, and in my work, a lot of them think that the best years are behind them, or the best experiences are behind them, and therefore maybe they don't have as much of that gump, that emphasis on life, or that energy, if you will, to see that it's never too late. There's still never too late to travel, never
Yeah.
too late to experience, and never, like you said a minute ago, never too late to actually turn your life around, even for those who maybe are not at the place that they'd like to be, whether it's personally or financially. That
Yeah.
it's never too late. I
Well,
think
and
that's very appropriate.
if you think about it in retirement, it's the opportunity to take on either it's a job or it's a hobby or whatever it happens to be, an avocation that is something that is fun to you and passion driving for you versus sometimes people get stuck in careers and jobs because they're good at it and they feel like they have to do it because they have to make money or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so a lot of these have to messages in your own head, they become tapes that sort of lock you into certain life and a certain career path or a certain kind of situation. Whereas in retirement, maybe that's your first opportunity to start to explore the freedom of like, okay, what is it that I want to achieve or experience or do before it's too late?
Right.
Right. And a lot of people save and save and save because they want to save to go on some vacation or they want to save to go do something. And some people never make that trip because something in life has changed
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
they pass away or whatever it happens to
Yeah.
be.
I was going to say health matters. You see that
Health
a lot, where you
matters.
think, how I have time later in life, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, you get slowed down with health matters,
Yep.
or needs that need
Yeah.
surgery, or stuff
Surgeries.
like that, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So no better time than now,
And
right?
believe me, traveling when you're not fully healthy is not easy.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, yeah. Speaking of traveling, you've lived in a variety of places. You've lived in Maryland, California, and now Las Vegas. Uh, what's been the biggest surprise about living in Las Vegas, aside from the Strip?
Just how much of a full and rich city Las Vegas actually is. It's interesting. I've had a lot of roots or history with Vegas all throughout my life, even starting from back in high school and college days. And that was way back when the whole city was very different. And so I was an athlete pretty much all my life as well. So I've competed in a number of sports at a top level. So I was a national bowling champion. I was bowled on the PBA or the Professional Bowlers
Is
Tour.
that right? Wow.
Yeah,
I didn't know that from my
that's
research.
another
I'm
one.
learning another. Oh
I'm
my
wearing
goodness.
a 300 ring right now for
Uh-huh.
Perfect Games.
Wow.
But also, I competed heavily in like volleyball, tennis. I've been a full tennis advocate for all my life, pretty much. Competed in just about every sport, water polo, swimming, you name it. So, um, the whole thing about sports is that it builds a very much your personality and your persona. And one of the things that's really important is that sports also drives a certain kind of passion for most people if they compete. Do you play any sort of sports yourself?
My sporting career is behind me. But I mean, I like to be active.
Yeah.
My height wouldn't tell you, but basketball was a passion early in life, and I have still a pretty good shot, but I didn't go as far as you
Yeah.
in my sporting. I like
So,
volleyball too,
yeah,
but
but sports is also, and I played volleyball as well, as
yeah,
that's what I said, but sports is something that balances your life out as well.
yeah,
And it's just like as you think about the whole concept you asked me at the very beginning about business, It also is important in life to be very, hopefully balanced. However you define what balance is,
Yeah.
balance is different for everybody. So, and I'm not sure what we're going with the sports analogy, but
Well, we were talking about Vegas and your history
yeah,
with Vegas and leading up but you brought up very good points about just also just in retirement having, I mean, a balance for all of us, but again, in retirement for people who might think that the best is behind them, it's never too late to continue that balance, and
exactly.
hence probably why we see a lot of these age restricted communities have a lot of amenities to
Yeah,
offer: pickleball, tennis,
right.
different activities.
Which is what Las Vegas does offer. It's amazing how many people I know when I said, "Oh, you know what? I decided I was going to retire in Las Vegas."
Yeah.
And because I was considering several different places around the country, so I
Yeah.
considered Palm Beach,
Okay.
so the Florida sort of air coast. I
Right.
considered Scottsdale in Phoenix, Arizona area. So that's a very popular retirement community.
Right.
And then I considered Vegas. And it turns out that as I start to explore different places and options, Vegas really brought to me the most variety of options that you can experience while you're retired. So not only is there the sports and things that go on now, we have professional sports teams, Stanley Cup champion in
Yeah.
the Golden Knights. We have WNBA. We've got now we're going to have a baseball team,
Yeah.
uh, a baseball team coming, the A's. So all these things are really evolving the city into full circle of a large embracing city. But there's also Red Rock Canyon, there's Charleston, there's Lake Mead, all these things. You can do water sports all over the place nearby. You can do skiing, you can do horseback riding, camping, hiking, you name it. So there's such a variety of experiences. And with the sports side of it, it's really great because a lot of the professional sports activities come through Vegas as well, even if they're not housed here. So you have March Madness coming up. You have a lot of ways to view it. So you
Yeah.
have a lot of viewing opportunities. The whole thing with bowling, what I was bringing it up earlier, is I actually won a national title here for team championships for bowling for UCLA.
Okay.
So we won that 3 years in a row at Showboat Lanes, which is no
Showboat.
longer
Yeah, I
here,
remember the
but that was
showboat.
from way long time ago.
Uh-huh.
So I had a connection back even in my college days to Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And then I remember learning how to play poker. So I used to come here like in college days and start playing poker back at the old Stardust, and then all
Yeah.
the different casinos. So there's a lot of connection. And eventually I did some consulting work with MGM. And I actually live in a place that was started up as a development from MGM Resorts, which is City Center. And that's where
Yeah.
I live now in terms of Veer Towers in the Ohio high-rise development.
Right.
So, and one of my criteria when I retired was I want to live someplace where I could spend maybe 75, 80% or more of my time walking to places to experience entertainment and food and whatever it is that I wanted to do. And I live in a situation now where I can do that.
Yeah.
I live
Wonderful.
right on the strip. And a lot of people think, well, wow, you live on the strip. I said, but it's really interesting because being in a retirement stage or semi-retired, I could do all sorts of work during the day in my place. I do still consulting work part-time with my consulting business still with some clients. And so but I can come out every single night, walk around the local neighborhood and feel like I'm on vacation every night.
Right. That's a good feeling.
Yeah.
And the liveliness
Yeah.
of always, and I'm sure that part of the differences from some of those other choices, not to knock, those were good choices, by the way. I don't
Right.
want to knock our residents in Palm Beach or Scottsdale.
Yeah, exactly.
So no offense, but you have that constant life, what I was called the heartbeat, in the mother, being kind of in the mother's womb. You have that heartbeat of the city that's there and that life. Something I appreciate is knowing that even if you're just kind of walking in shoulders with others, just the fact that you're amongst,
Yeah.
life and you're seeing it, I would assume translated to like living maybe in like Manhattan or something along
Exactly.
those lines, a city kind of life, right?
And the really unique thing about Vegas is if you are on the strip at least walking around, you're around people that are pretty much usually on vacation or at a convention or something like that.
Right.
So they're all really pretty much having fun.
In a good mood.
And so it's
Yeah.
very passion filling and passion inspiring to me
Yes.
to be around people that are having a good time
Yeah.
and usually having fun.
That's
You
right.
know, obviously there are going to be people that are not having fun or
Right.
losing money gambling or
Sure.
whatever it is.
Right.
But that's, you got to just pick the places where you hang out, where you walk around. And I'd say the vast majority of the time you're going to be around people that are on vacation,
Yeah.
enjoying having fun, doing something they're really trying to experience. And it's very uplifting to a person that is retired also
Yeah.
to be around an environment like that versus being around people that might be down or depressed or,
Right.
you know, everything. That's the thing I forgot to mention. In Vegas, you can always find something open any time of the day.
Yes.
And I remember living in California, and particularly in Orange County area and the LA area, and I traveled 300 days a year during my peak periods from my career. And I'd oftentimes fly home into even LAX, Los Angeles, and be back at 2 in the morning, driving home, and everything is closed. When I come back to Vegas and arrive here at 1 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock, and I start heading home, I head to an area where everything's still open.
Right.
You
Right.
know, and so it really feels good to have that sort of environment in the
Absolutely.
retirement years
Yeah.
because it never feels like you're lonely.
Right. It gives life. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Um, in true Vegas fashion, you mentioned a minute ago, you started learning how to play poker back in those showboat days.
Yeah.
But then you became a certified poker dealer.
Yeah.
A lot of lessons in poker. If you could give me one of the most valuable lessons that poker has taught you, could you sum it up in one thing or
And how about 1.5 or
one and a
2?
half or two? Sure.
Okay. One, you need to play the game with strategy.
Yeah.
And same with life, you got to have a strategy for your own life. And so strategy means like how you might approach the game, what methods you might use, and things like that. The second thing I'd say, and this may sound a little trite, but much like in life, as in poker, you've got to play the cards that you're dealt. And when you're playing poker, you don't always have to have cards that are the best cards. You have to be able to bluff your way through a hand. And bluffing doesn't mean lying. Bluffing means you've got to be able to play the hand in a way that convinces others of what you would actually have in your hand,
Yeah.
your cards,
Yeah.
not necessarily what you have. And just like in life, sometimes you've got to bluff your way through life as well. And again, there are situations, whether it's in a legal situation or it's in a life situation or it's in a job situation, you sometimes have to bluff in order to convince people that you know what you're doing or you know what you have or you've got the solution or whatever it happens to be. And again, it doesn't mean you're lying. It just means that you're setting up the scenario to convince others around you of what you have.
Yeah. What a great analogy
Yeah.
that can be applied to so many different things in life and
For sure.
going back to retirement and hey, you may not have the best cards right now, but it's never too late.
Yep.
Work with what you have and wait for what is it called? What comes back around the river. Now see, I'm talking poker talk that I shouldn't get in this lane.
Yeah, the last card's the river.
The river, man. Maybe the river comes back around. You never know, right?
You might get the what we call in poker the one outer.
The one outer.
The one
There you
card
go.
that
See?
you have that
I'm
is
learning
available in the deck that can help you win. It shows up.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Okay. So you're semi-retired right now. Obviously, you're just still keeping busy. What does a perfect day in retirement look like to you? What would a perfect day look like to
Wow.
you?
Oh, I'd say to me, a perfect day in retirement is that every day looks and feels and experiences different. I think in my retirement years, one of the things that's very important is not to get into a rut. And sometimes I know I know a lot of friends and family that have gotten to that stage when they've gotten to retirement. They sort of like, I don't want to say negatively, but they do sort of give up on life.
Yeah.
They feel like their best years are behind them, that, then every single day just becomes some routine.
Yeah.
And believe me, if you start to get into a routine, it basically gradually fades away.
Yeah.
And so to me, what's exciting about retirement stages is that each day you have something to look forward to. And it doesn't have to be the same. And then I always try to make sure that, which is unique for me, that my entire next day is not always planned out. And even though I may have things I got to get done or things that I got to do, or whether I'm working a part-time job, I got to show up to work my shift or whatever it happens to be, there's still a lot more time in that day that doesn't have to be fully defined or that there's nothing to look forward to.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say
Well
is my
said. Yeah.
perfect day.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, that sounds like a good day to me. Um, Talking about your journey to the reverse mortgage. You mentioned to me that you were thinking a lot about how to manage your resources in retirement before you were looking at the reverse mortgage. Prior to that, what were some of your biggest financial concerns before actually moving forward with the reverse mortgage?
Well, in life, because I have both business finances to deal with, 'cause I still have my business open technically, even though I've sort of scaled it way back from where it was in its heyday. But I still have responsibilities that are kind of follow the business. And then secondly, I have personal life and all of that. So one of the things I had to figure out was how do you reduce the burden of what you have in terms of debt? Secondly, I wanted to figure out, do you want to take on more debt by doing a refinance or doing something like that, which is different than a reverse mortgage? And so those are some of the considerations I had to figure out. And then obviously there's different categories of debt that people have, and most people have. And then I also wanted to figure out, what do I want to do beyond the situation of whether I refinance or get a reverse mortgage or whatever. And what else do I want to consider taking on or not taking on as far as additional debt? So those are the factors I had to kind of
Yeah.
figure out.
Okay.
And
Bef-
that obviously that goes with cash flow and all these other things.
right. Sure. Sure. And before reaching out to me, had you heard of the proprietary or jumbo reverse mortgage? Had you heard that prior to us
I
talking?
researched reverse mortgages, and I remember reading about different types of reverse mortgages or categories. Um, I didn't know everything about each one of those because I had not been through a reverse mortgage before. Um, I I know other people that have had reverse mortgages, so I was able to reach out to a few different colleagues or friends that had gone through it, so I got their opinion. But they didn't give me the details of, like, do a jumbo or do a priority or do whatever it was,
Yeah.
types of different categories. So it wasn't until I met you that and reached out to you that I found out about what options there were or what different categories there were.
Okay. And did you have, and obviously you had a few people who, friends and colleagues, as you mentioned, who had reverse mortgages previously, which I'm sure was very helpful in your
Mhm.
research. Um, at any point before speaking to them or even in speaking with them, were there any general misconceptions that you had about reverse mortgages that you came to find out weren't true?
Well, one I think that I started out with early on was that once you get into a reverse mortgage, then you're pretty much locked into it, and that you can't do much else after that. So that was a misperception. So I learned through you and through additional research that you could still sell a home if it's got a reverse mortgage. It's just a matter of the calculations of the equity that remains in the home. You can refinance a reverse mortgage, which I didn't realize as well. So that's another thing that I learned along the way. Um, so there's there it I guess the biggest eye opener was that a misperception around being locked. That, like,
Yeah.
that reverse mortgage was sort of like the end game
Right.
or the last thing that you want to try
Right.
versus other options.
Yeah.
A reverse mortgage could very much be the first thing that you do and switch it out later on
Yeah.
to something else.
That's a good point because that's certainly one of the reservations that a lot of people have with the product is and why they're so cautious
Yeah,
is they think exactly what you just said is that, well, if I go down this road, then that's it. That's gonna lock me into XYZ, or it's gonna keep me from doing ABC, or they think that there's, like you said, that your opportunities or your options are going to be limited or restricted as a
right,
result. Yeah.
right.
So I'm glad you brought that up. What ultimately convinced you that the reverse mortgage was the right move for you?
Well, I think there's a feature of a reverse mortgage that a lot of people may not think about, but is there, unless I misunderstood it. And that is, if you have a reverse mortgage in place, at some point, let's say you become totally financially in shambles or gone,
Yeah.
that your home cannot be taken away from you at the very end, and until maybe after you die. Then at that point, it goes back to the holder of the reverse mortgage. But that at some point they can't kick you out of the home
Right.
unless you're not maintaining it to whatever level it needs to be maintained at.
Right.
Yeah. So
Right.
there may be other clauses and things like that that I'm not familiar with or not fully versed on, but that's concept is what my understanding is that,
Yeah.
if you lived it out till you died, then they're not going to throw you out because you're not paying a mortgage.
That's right. Yeah. And just to reiterate that, that's exactly right. As long as you're living in the home as your primary
Right.
residence. And when we talk about maintaining the home, it's the maintenance fees such as your HOA dues,
HOAs, yeah.
property taxes, homeowners insurance, and and then just making sure that you're keeping up with the property. In other words, you're not letting it just kind of dilapidate, which
Exactly.
most homeowners are not going to allow that, but there is that,
Yeah,
clause to
there's
make
that
sure.
possibility.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
but you're right. Um, so most people associate reverse mortgages with the FHA reverse mortgage, not the proprietary or the jumbo reverse mortgage. This jumbo reverse mortgage, a lot of people don't know about it. The reason it was created is for higher value properties so
Mhm.
that one could qualify for more of their equity. So it goes up to 4 million in loan amounts. Um, what was there an aspect? I know you didn't know much about that, but was there, when we were looking at your options, was there an aspect of the jumbo product that was more appealing to you? Was it just simply because it offered more equity that you could access that made it more appealing to you? Or
Well, for sure, one element was to consider a different type of a reverse mortgage other than FHA,
yeah,
because the development of the property of my home where I own now, they did not qualify to do FHA loans,
oh, the condo
the
development,
condo
correct?
development.
Yes,
So the FHA option was not even on the table, or wasn't a path that I could go down because if I was going to stay living there and owning that property, then I had to could look at a different option.
right,
So when I first talked with you about it, that's when we just, you shared about the other types of proprietary jumbo things like that that were non-FHA connected or
right,
driven. So that became then a possible solution for me because I had to have something that was non-FHA.
right, right. Yep. Um, a big thing that this product gets pegged with is that this is the loan of last resort. When
Yeah.
you're down and out, then and only then, take out a reverse mortgage. But like yourself, there's a lot of homeowners who are not in that situation, who are not in some sort of financial distress, or in many cases, people who are doing quite well, or what we call affluent homeowners. Um, what has eliminating the mortgage payment and your other debts, what has that done for your cash flow and just your financial peace of mind?
Well, it allows me well, that was the option was solid for me because it allowed me to eliminate a small mortgage. I didn't even have a mortgage when I first purchased the property, so I took out uh, line of second, I guess you would call it at that time, even though there wasn't a first.
Yep.
But that second became the first because I didn't have a first. So if that mortgage that I had, as well as credit card debts and some other personal loan debts. So a way to do it, I didn't want to take out another like a refinance loan to pay those things off and then still have a payment to deal with.
Right.
So the reverse mortgage option gave me the option to eliminate some of those things as debt and not take on yet another payment in order to take those out.
Right.
And it took it out of the equity of my home. And then it still allows me to own the home, and it still allows me the freedom in the future if I want to sell the home still. There would still be equity because I'm also assuming that the value of the home would increase over years. So the formula that you look at as of today or last year when I looked at it, it was based on sort of a gradual escalation of the equity based on a standard formula. However, given Las Vegas and the way that a lot of real estate would happen, especially the location where I'm at, my assumption is that it might actually jump or increase more over the longer term than I was looking at in the standard formula.
Right.
So I hope that's not a bad assumption,
No.
but Now with the Oakland A's ballpark being built
Yeah.
coming up just down the neighborhood from you, I mean, I can do walking distance to T-Mobile for the Golden Knights, walking distance eventually to the ballpark for the Oakland A's,
Yeah.
or now the Las Vegas A's,
Right.
and I can walk to Allegiant Stadium for the Raiders.
Right.
So those are all things that are attractive to even players on the team and coaches and all of that. That we have people in our development that are part of the Knights or part of the different ballpark ball teams,
Yep.
sports teams, and so forth. We have other celebrities that are living there. So I am assuming that the values of the home are going to go up and at a faster, hopefully a better rate than the calculation.
That showed. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. So would you say this was a strategic move in your retirement?
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
part of the strategy. My
Yeah.
original part of my strategy for retirement was to invest in different properties, eventually take out or sell them or do whatever and take the equity to live on as you go forward in retirement. So this was just another piece part of that pie to figure out, okay, how do you leverage the property that I'm in? I had first off, I had to decide if I wanted to live there for a certain period of time, and that would be the primary. And then I started to pursue the reverse mortgage as a result of that so
Yeah.
that I could not have the mortgage payment. I could stay the property. I got to maintain the HOA fees and things like that. And so,
All in all, I presume with the goal of having more funds in retirement, having a more successful retirement, if you will. I mean, I assume that's part of the
oh, yeah,
strategy,
that's
right?
part of it. Yeah.
Is that I'm doing this to increase cash flow, as you said,
Yeah.
uh, uh, restructure some debts, if you will, with the end goal of I'm making my retirement more liquid,
Right.
increasing maybe my cash assets,
Yeah.
but knowing, like you said, that I still got equity there, and it's forecasted it's still going to be growing. And with everything you just said, and on top
Yeah.
of it, my location and everything's happening in my area, I have pretty good feelings. You're saying pretty good feelings that's even going to grow further than my expectations.
That's my
Yeah,
hopes.
yeah, sure,
That's part of the risk assessment. And that was part of the analogy around looking at sort of that sort of approach as one of the pieces of the strategy.
yeah. Looking back, is there anything that you wish you would have known sooner about reverse mortgages?
Um, that reverse mortgages still come with a requirement for income that you got to figure out, and that determines how much of the reverse mortgage you can actually apply for,
Yeah.
or how much can be acquired. So you still have to figure out the whole financial picture as you approach a reverse mortgage, because you got to figure out what's the amount that you qualify for, you get, what can be taken on. So those are things that had to be a little bit of a juggle to try to figure out because at first I was thinking take out everything, and then I was like, no, you can only take out so many things, and then you may still have debts or other things that you aren't going to put in as part of the reverse mortgage close. So you, as a plan, you've got to figure out what's going to be remaining, along with what you have to service at the home. Like you said, the HOA fees. You got to still deal with insurance. You got to still deal with property taxes and things like that.
Right.
So that becomes all part of the factors.
Right. So now, with everything you've put in place, how has your lifestyle changed? Are there any new opportunities that this is perhaps allowing you to explore that maybe you weren't able to explore before, or maybe explore more comfortably now that you have this piece in your retirement plan?
Yeah, I mean, it gives me a opportunity to figure out, well, what's my cash flow requirements for living day to day. So it changes that sort of balance and sort of picture. And secondly, it allows me to not worry about certain payments that I dealt with before, so that I can just focus on the other things that I still have remaining. Third, it gives me some time to explore other sorts of part-time experiences. So it doesn't mean I have to take on more consulting clients or take on a much bigger type of part-time job or full-time job, but it's allowed me to now explore these things I wanted to learn and do as part-time. So, like you said, since I was certified as a poker dealer, I've taken on a part-time poker dealing job.
Mm-hmm.
And so it gives me a chance to not only I can play on my own time, but also I'm now dealing once in a while at a casino. So that allows me to sort of see the game and the strategy from a different perspective.
Right.
And especially if you're dealing in a lot of these bigger games where a lot of the poker pros are playing in, then it gives me an opportunity to assess how they're playing while I'm actually dealing as well.
Right. Sure. You obviously thrive on productivity, and curious, what role does work, whether it's consulting, writing, or playing poker, what role does work play in retirement for you? Or perhaps what you can share how it can play in other people's lives out there.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I've learned early on in my life, and I've really tried to communicate through my book, The Passion Plan, is for people to figure out what their core passion is and how they integrate their passions into their lives, whether it's work, friends, family, whatever it happens to be. So one of the questions you asked me early on was, what do I advise businesses on and how they look at their business strategy? And one of the things I do try to work into their strategy and their strategic plan is to make sure that their operating model and how they work as a business focuses on things that they as a business really have a passion about. Not so much what can make the money and just making money, because you make money so many different ways, but as a business, you got to have a passion for what you're also doing as a business to get people inside to be excited about it. So,
Right.
for example, when I consulted to Union Pacific Railroad, it was amazing to me how many employees in that company are passionate about trains and railroads and things like that, and they're working in a place that taps their passion, even though they may not be the conductor of the train.
Yeah.
They're working in an organization that contributes toward trains and transportation and all of that. And those people that there have a passion for it. Just like if you worked for a sports team, you may not be the best football player in the world, but if you work for the Raiders, maybe that's tapping your passion for the sport itself and for competition or whatever it happens to be, even though you're not on the team as a player.
Right.
And so that's one thing that I had to figure out too is um, it, I'm trying to take on jobs or part-time things that don't feel like work, quote unquote.
Hmm.
And that's how people get trapped. They are working a job they aren't really passionate about, and that creates other emotional imbalances for what you're doing. And even though they're making money, they may be making the money they got to make, and sometimes you got to make that sacrifice, but they're not loving what they're doing. And so what I did now in retirement is I've taken on some of these part-time jobs because they're things that I have a passion for. So I have a passion for playing poker and I have a passion for the game and the strategy and how it's done. So doing it part-time, not full-time, just you don't have to do everything full-time to have a passion for it. So it taps me when I'm doing the dealing, it taps that inner passion within me. So I have a fun time doing that job.
Yeah.
And and everything else, like even consulting clients I take on now, I only take on part-time these clients that I support that are in associations or businesses that I have a passion for something that they're doing as a business and as an association. So I remember when I consulted with Universal Studios, I loved it because not so much just the theme park aspects of Universal, but also working within the entertainment side of it and so forth. So I had a chance to tap my inner passion around entertainment and my inner passion around service and guest experience and engagement. So I always tried to align the clients that I took on in a big way with things that I had a passion for.
Yeah.
And that way it doesn't feel like a job or it doesn't feel like work.
Right. Right. Yeah. I think that's a blessing to have, something like that. And I think a lot of people would really,
Resonate with that, I
yeah, would
hope.
resonate, would love to have something like that. And unfortunately, not everyone is as fortunate to have all those pieces. But if you can, and maybe
Yeah.
the passion plan, as you write in there, it could be kind of a guide for people to
Yeah.
find that passion. I haven't read the book yet. I'm going to read the book, but I presume that's kind of what you're leading people to, is to think about it and maybe
Yep.
even position them in such a way that they can, check all those boxes that we have to check with being able to sustain ourselves and make money, but at the same token, have a
Yeah.
little fun in the process, or have it be a little bit more
Yeah.
meaningful in the
And back in the
process.
day when the Passion Plan came out, that was the first book that came out around seeing passion as a plan and a strategy in life, not just an emotion.
Yeah.
And so that's why I called it that in purpose, the passion plan, because not only do you need to identify what that passion is or those passions are, but you also have to have a plan of action in order to integrate those passions into your life.
Yeah.
And the work the experiences, the friends, the family, whatever, that how do you keep that passion alive within your life? And that's going to help drive you.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Um, if someone who's maybe out there listening to us is hesitant about considering a reverse mortgage, whether it be the traditional FHA or even the jumbo reverse mortgage, what would you say to them?
Don't give up on it as an opportunity until you've actually gone deep enough with the application process and understand the pros and cons of what a reverse mortgage will do for you personally. Clearly, for each person, there's different situations and different things to consider. So there's the general factors, but you also have to look at um, the future of the assumption that say, let's say you have this reverse mortgage in place and you understand the elements of that reverse mortgage, then take a look at how that looks against the other things you have remaining in your life to manage through, whether it's financials or it's opportunities that you want to do, whether it's travel, things that you want to be able to experience. How does using a reverse mortgage, having that in your portfolio fit with everything else that you have on your plate that you can consider?
Right.
And weigh the pros and cons of it against an alternative. If your alternative is doing a refinance, a traditional refinance, or your alternative is to go into bankruptcy or whatever it happens to be, those are all options in life, but you got to figure out the implications.
Yeah.
So, and make sure that it fits into your portfolio and it will help you the way you can. And try not to think just short term. Think in terms of a little longer term, because that's what I had to figure out too, is I had to figure out, okay, if this is the forecast of what a reverse mortgage looks like for me. This is what's remaining in the equity 3 years out, 5 years out, 10 years out. And do I have other options I could consider 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now that would change the picture? And those are all things to not get locked into that it's a done deal forever.
Right. Right. And you said it too, is just knowing your options. And I think that's one of the reservations that people have with this product is they think again that it's going to pigeonhole them in something and then they don't even look into it. They don't, it's not even an option on the table because they don't ever even go that far for whatever reason, their own misconceptions or what the neighbor says or what they
Yep,
read on online. And that's in a lot of ways a disservice to a lot of people. I feel that they
sure.
don't even get to look to see if it's truly something that could benefit them or not, not even to go that far into the research to find out,
Yeah.
so,
There is one aha that I did forget to mention
oh,
earlier,
yeah.
and that is I never realized that you could actually purchase a new home with a reverse mortgage.
Oh, yeah.
So that's another thing for people to consider because maybe you get I don't know if actually this is a quick question for you.
Sure.
Can you have more than one reverse mortgage in your
No,
portfolio?
no,
Only one.
only one because it's
Okay.
only for your primary residence.
All right.
Yeah.
So people maybe even at a semi-retirement stage or a retirement stage that don't have a home that's under a reverse mortgage, they might consider purchasing a new home with a reverse mortgage.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And we see that a lot, and a lot of people moving in here from whether it's California or other
Right.
parts of the country that are in retirement and are using a reverse mortgage to buy the home. There's
Yeah.
a lot of advantages to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Your story is certainly proof that a reverse mortgage is not for just the struggling homeowner, the one who is in dire need financially and needs to find a solution. And lo and behold, the only solution is the reverse mortgage. I mean, obviously, we have helped a lot of people in those situations, and we want to continue
Right.
helping people in those situations who are not living their best retirement or in very despair types of circumstances. We want to help those people, obviously. But today we really wanted to showcase, which you have articulated very well, that this product goes beyond serving just those in need, that this is a tool. It's a financial tool. And with it, there's a lot of retirement strategies that one can employ.
Yep.
You use it to employ a couple different strategies for yourself. And that's really something that we want to make sure we get out there with the affluent community and those who again don't have a burning desire but might want to make retirement a little bit better for themselves, whatever that is for them, however that looks for themselves, to make retirement that much more successful for themselves and maybe even for their legacy or their estate. um, So certainly, jumbo reverse mortgage is something that we wanted to let the audience know that is available. Certainly for anyone who's wanting more information on that, you can always reach out to me. Visit my website,
Yeah.
theretirementhomeloan.com as well. If you enjoyed today's episode with Retirement with Rick, please like it, share it, so that we can continue the conversation. It's a great conversation that we had today with Dr. Richard Chang that needs to get out there more on how this product can be used. If you have any questions about how this can fit in your retirement, drop me a message, reach out to me. Richard, this has been great. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. A lot of inspirations in what you've shared here today, not just with the fact that you put a reverse mortgage in place, but just your outlook on retirement and life balance, and how it's never too late for people to continue to enjoy their life or maybe turn their life around. I mean, there's a lot of inspiring nuggets here today that I want to thank you for sharing. Is there anything that we haven't touched? Anything else that maybe you'd like to share about what we've talked about today? And then lastly, where can people learn more about your work, books that you've published and such?
I think you just summarized a little bit of it as you were closing out here. One is that never think of a reverse mortgage or your financial situation as just the end game,
Hmm.
that it's going to be part of something else that you have to look at in terms of your life mix. And the second thing is that retirement doesn't mean that your life has to end. Retirement means that it's a great new chapter in your life that gives you an opportunity to hopefully then explore and tap into passions that you have as an individual that maybe you somehow not spent time focusing on as you're going through your earlier stages of your life. You can certainly look for books of mine. Some of those are available on Amazon.com
Okay.
under my last name, Richard Chang. And you can also, I have a website for my business for www.richardchangassociates.com. That website's currently under construction or repair because I'm trying to transition it a little bit from where it was from the last 30, 40 years.
Yep.
So, but that's the case. But hopefully, Amazon, if you're looking for some books, they're available there as well.
Excellent. Richard, thank you again.
All right.
And to our listeners out there, until next time, take care of yourselves and make the most of your retirement.